Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry. Good morning. I think that we can start.
Dzień dobry.
Dzień dobry.
A good reminder to mute all phones.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, kindly mute yourselves, and also you can turn off your camera. Okay, so I guess we can start. My name is Monika Siek, and within Trade and Economic Mission to Embassy of Israel in Poland, I'm responsible for promotion of Israeli solutions in various sectors. Today I'll be hosting our short, though very interesting meeting. And first, I'd like to ask Mr. Jarosław Parzechowski, who is representing today both Marshal's Office and Interizon Foundation, to say a few words of opening.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. First of all, let me thank you all for being here. I'm very happy that so many of you could make it today. I would like to introduce myself. I'm Jarosław Parzechowski, CEO of Interizon Cluster, and also the chairman of Pomorskie smart specialization called Interactive Technologies in an Information Saturated Environment. It's a great honor for me to welcome you on behalf of Interizon Cluster and the Marshal Office of Pomorskie region to this online meeting on Israel innovation ecosystem. Some participants are still joining, but let's stick to the agenda and start. I would like to welcome our today's speakers, Ms. Sarah Ann Maddy, Trade Attaché at Embassy of Israel, and Ms. Neta Gruber, representing Innovation Israel. My special thanks go also to Israel Trade and Economic Mission in Poland and the Marshal Office of the Pomorskie region for making this event possible. What we would like to present to you today is an introduction to a series of online meetings between Israel and Polish companies. We hope that we can build a strong network of cooperation, a business cooperation network between our countries. Today's meeting starts a series of events promoting both Polish and Israel technologies and supporting the development of cooperation in such fields like ICT, trade, investment, research, and education. And our general idea is to find business partners for these cooperations. And as I said, today we have introduction to those series of meetings. And today we will learn more about Israel innovation ecosystem. A very short introduction about Interizon Cluster. Interizon is a Polish national key cluster associating 95 members, representing 13 business sectors, and companies within the cluster are employing over 20,000 people. Members include companies from IT sector, electronics, telecommunication, robotics, as well as R&D institutions and universities. And the companies within cluster provide a wide offer of electronic goods, software, and a lot of R&D projects. Also, Interizon is coordinating one of Pomorskie Smart Specialization. An important part of cluster activities is to build a network of cooperation, international network of cooperation. For example, last year we established a new international network called European ICT Alliance. We are located in Gdańsk Technology and Science Park. So for those of you who are not cluster members, if you are interested in cooperation, please feel free to contact us. I will now give the floor to Ms. Sarah Ann Madi, Trade Attaché at the Embassy of Israel. Thank you.
Thank you, Yaroslav, and thank you so much for this great cooperation and definitely the first webinar of a series. And I guess I've been introduced, and I'll get straight to sharing the presentation and giving a short introduction about the Israeli ecosystem and what makes it so unique and successful, in my opinion. And I can share the screen, right? Okay.
Great. Yes, we are seeing the screen. So
yeah, great. So maybe for those of you who are not well familiar with Israel, let's start with a quick country profile. The total area of Israel is about 22,000 square kilometers and a population of almost 9 million. Just to compare, Poland is about 14 times bigger in total area and about 3 times bigger the population. The major cities in Israel are Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and Haifa, with Tel Aviv mainly being the innovation ecosystem representative. The GDP is about 355 billion US dollars. Whereas the GDP per capita is about 43,000 USD. Just to compare, in Poland, it's about 16,000 USD. The R&D expenditure as share of the GDP is actually quite of the high in the world. It's about 4%. And I think it's what makes Israel very well known for its startups and also for the support that basically the government, and later we will hear Neta Gruber from the Innovation Authority, supporting startups, supporting them even if later they do not succeed in becoming a company, and definitely it makes it one of the unique features of the Israeli ecosystem. The FDIs are about 166 billion USD. And later we'll see that the investments per capita are also one of the high. As I said, Tel Aviv is one of the major representative of innovation. It is the 6th in global startup ecosystem, 18th in top tech cities worldwide, and 23rd as the largest science and tech cluster. With neurology science being the leading, and Tel Aviv University as the top science organization. The city's ecosystem is ranked 5th in the world in terms of innovation ecosystem, and I think it's quite impressive for a small country relatively. As you see here, it almost more than 70% of multinational companies have their R&D or innovation center in Tel Aviv or the surrounding area. Investments per capita are also higher than leading countries in the world, and about $400 billion, $400 billion. When we see the sectors that are leading in terms of funding, AI would definitely take the win, and it rose about 70% in 2019. And even though 2020 was kind of challenging to all of us. Still, AI technologies, artificial intelligence technologies had about 37% more funding in 2020, the first quarter of 2020, than the same quarter in 2019. A good fact to know is that out of 8 billion invested in tech companies in Israel, almost half were in AI startup companies, basically in different sectors, because it's cross-sectorial feature. When we discuss the strongest sectors in Israel, I think most of you would identify that cybersecurity is one of the leading, or in general security, basically out of a lot of reasons that were given to Israel. So cybersecurity and definitely digital health, and I think we saw during the COVID-19 period, and still right now, a lot of Israeli companies in this field are active. And we had recently an event about AI in health, and I think it is still one of the leading in Israel, and fintech, of course. But I think in fintech and this sector, Poland is also a great competitive, because it is definitely one of the strongest sectors here in Poland. And I know that there are a lot of companies that we also cooperate with in this sector, and part of them are also here with us. So a bit maybe about those sectors. But before that, of course, there are other sectors that are quite unique also for Israel. You can see the automotive, and probably you're familiar with Mobileye as the leading Israeli company in this term. Clean tech, water technologies, and in water technologies, for example, it's been a great progress, because initially Israel was mainly focusing on exporting agricultural products, and now the main focus is on exporting technological solutions for water management or irrigation solutions, and aerospace industry, and everything related to planes, either in parts or technologies, AI technologies, etc. The cybersecurity journey in Israel started in the 80s with just IT security software, and now it's become the leading sector in Israel, with about 30% of the global funding in cybersecurity, which is also quite impressive. We can say that we have more than 400 cybersecurity companies per se in Israel, but I guess if we count all the wider aspect of cybersecurity, we can get to even more than 500. And some of the Israeli companies that you probably heard of and maybe never knew that it was Israeli, there's Checkpoint, Radware, CyberArk, and Imperva, providing a wide range of cybersecurity solutions. The uniqueness of the cyber sector, in specific in general in Israel, I think is combined by 3 angles. We have the academy as leading the R&D in cybersecurity and supporting all the efforts. There is the CyberSpark in Be'er Sheva. There are quite a lot of universities, the Negev universities, the Ben Gurion in the Negev University, the Tel Aviv University, Haifa University, the Technion, of course. They all have their R&D centers and supporting cyber innovation. There's the industry, which also consists, and that leads me to the third angle, which is the IDF and the Elite Intel Unit. The industry basically comprises of leading IDF commanders who worked in elite intel unit and leading them to then head a cybersecurity company. So of course, all these three angles support each other to making Israel very unique in this ecosystem, and especially in cybersecurity. In terms of subsectors in cybersecurity, we can see that the leading sector is about IoT and connected devices, and data protection, encryption, and privacy. And also network security, of course, but basically it all comes down to protecting data and connecting devices being protected from outside attacks. The other sector, as I said, that is quite strong in Israel is the digital health, or in general life sciences. And the two main points that is also supporting this ecosystem is basically the fact that being a part of one of the four major health maintenance organizations is sort of mandatory to every citizen in Israel. So you would never find someone without any health insurance, for example. One is paid for the government, and then the division is according to the membership of the citizens in those four major health organizations. And definitely in digitizing the patient data. So for example, I'm a member of one of those four health services providers, and I can access all my data through my app. I can, if I had a blood test, for example, yesterday, I can have my results today, just open and even see it with some explanation. So even you would know without having to go to the doctor what is wrong or where your data is not sufficient, and so on. So basically, it goes back to more than 20 years. 20 years back in terms of the data acquired by the digitizing. In terms of sectors, we see that digital therapeutics is quite the big share of the subsector in digital health. Remote monitoring, and I think it became very, very crucial during this period to supervise our elderly, supervise family members who have some background issues in health, especially because of the whole social distancing and not being able to visit our loved ones. I think this subsector was one of the most or became known during this period. Decision support is also leading in the funding in digital health, but also one of the biggest sectors. I should say that Israel ranks first in medical device patents, so that's also making it unique in this sense. And second for medical device solutions per capita. So basically, I think cybersecurity and life science are leading the innovation ecosystem. Fintech, as being the last sector, basically is quite concentrated because it is led by 12 fintech companies that are the biggest and also raised more than 100 million USD. One of the companies that you maybe heard of, probably when hearing about some news about the exits, is Lemonade, Blue Vine, Fundax, Riskified, Rapid, Next Insurance. So basically, fintech also includes insurtech, some insurance solutions, how to make the insurance companies have basically less insurance cases and raise the revenues, for example, or how to make you understand better your status, basically, and understand it better. A lot of payment. Maybe I'll jump to the next slide. Out of more than 500 companies, the leading sector is payment and money transfer. A lot of solutions just make it easier to users to transfer money, even between friends, between family, just by clicking on your phone number, or really less data than needed before. InsurTech is, as I said, also we can call it a subsector of fintech, but it definitely goes in parallel. And lending and financing, and in making banking more accessible to clients. So basically, a lot of banks, for example, have their own applications to make it easier for you to ask for a loan, or P2P loans, and so on. Trading and investing is also one of the leading sectors. A lot of the solutions are also used by the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, and definitely other stock exchanges in the world. Yeah, basically that's about it in terms of sectors. Funding, as well, as you can see, was led by payment and money transfer, and also we can see quite an effect during this period. And now I think I will be open for questions if there are any, or we move directly to Neta.
We're moving to Neta as Q&A we're gonna do in the end of our meeting today. So thank you very much for this introduction to Israeli economy and major sectors. And now I'd like to ask Ms. Neta Gruber-Perry, who is Europe Desk Director at the Israeli Innovation Institute. Authority, I'm sorry. Neta, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. It's the Israel Innovation Authority, and I'm glad to be here. I'll share my screen in a second. There we go. Let me know if you can see it.
Yes, we can.
Yeah, okay, great. I just want to say, first of all, I'm glad to be here and thank you. And if you hear little boys sound in the background, it's because we are in severe lockdown without the education system. So we're doing, you know, the best we can to cope with the limitations. This is, you know, a part of being innovative. So as Monica kindly introduced me, my name is Neta Gruber-Perry. I'm Europe Desk Director at the International Collaboration Division of the Israel Innovation Authority. And I will lead you through a little bit of data about the Israel Innovation Authority. I'll try not to repeat too much. And about the Israel Innovation Authority, what we do, and some of the funding opportunities that we offer for collaborations between Israeli and Polish startups. So let's begin. We take a lot of pride in Israel in being global leaders in innovation. Again, Saran touched upon this. Here is a little bit about some of the global indexes that ranked us high in different parameters. So it's unique, you know, Israel is a tiny country, as you know, and we invest a lot of energy in order to make sure that we remain in this high standard, or, you know, even improve. So, and as you know, high tech is a growth engine for the Israeli economy. This is the reason we at the Israeli Innovation Authority invest so much in supporting it. It makes almost half of the total export in Israel. 13% of our GDP comes from high tech, and 9% of total employees, which is a lot. And it's hard to speak about 2020. As you know, it's been a very unusual year. Actually, the data is going to come out soon, but about 2019, that was a record-breaking year for us. Again, Saran touched upon this, but a little bit just to show the overall figures. So here at the bottom, you can see the figures that were in years past, and then in 2019, an increase in the private capital investments, in new multinational R&D centers opened in Israel, in net worth of exits of Israeli companies, and also we are some of the highest in the world in the percentage of expenditure on civilian R&D as a percentage of our GDP, 4.5%. I think we are, if I'm not mistaken, second in the world in that. Oops, sorry, going the wrong direction. So this is all, impressive and great, but what is the government's role in this? So as you know, the private sector is doing the vast work and the important work in promoting innovation. So what is our role as a government entity? We see ourselves as complementing the private sector. So we never want to take the lead, but rather to support and to complement, to remove obstacles, to address market failures where we see that there is need for public support, for where the private sector is coping less well, whether it's because it's a very innovative and futuristic field where it's still too risky to invest, whether it's because there's some need for regulation to be improved to open the way for the private market, whether it's because the ROI is very long or it's very costly and there is infrastructure needed, such as innovation labs in wet or deep innovation, wet labs. So these are the places where we see it is our duty to come in and to establish new growth engines for Israeli economy, but of course, as we know, the world is intertwined and we learn from each other globally, and we are interconnected, as I think this past year has shown us. So what we do eventually is not only focused on the Israeli market, but rather with the global scope. But our aim is to increase the financial value of Israeli innovation and to ensure our technological leadership in the future. So this is a bit about why we set off for this mission, a little bit about the Israel Innovation Authority, who we are and what we do. So again, we are a public funded entity. We used to be a part, such as, Sarah works for the Israeli Ministry of Trade and Economy. We used to also be a part of it, but a few years ago, we became an independent governmental entity. That means that we are still working very closely, but we have a little bit more flexibility. We have a yearly budget, which last year was 2.2 billion shekels, which is about $500 million of annual budget, which again is mostly invested in startups, and I'll say more to that in a second. So our mission is to support entrepreneurship and to support startups throughout their life cycle. So we support very early stage, such as tech transfer from academia to the industry, very early stage innovation. We support single entrepreneurs at the beginning of their path with innovation labs and incubators in a variety of fields, together with done in a PPP, what is called a private-public partnership format, together with leading industry players, both Israeli and global. We support companies in growth, and we also support companies, larger companies, corporates in Israel, and their connection to the international arena. So we have an approximately, it's actually even increased here. It says almost 3,000 submissions a year, but actually in the year of coronavirus, it actually increased since we opened a fast track for funding for either companies dealing directly with solutions for COVID or for companies in urgent need for funding, successful companies who've encountered specific difficulties because of this year, and it is within our interest to help them survive. So we've actually had 4,000 applications this year, which is a lot, but still you can see that the average is about 38% of the applications approved. It is a competitive process, but it is also possible. And some companies also receive funding for a variety of projects. So there are about 140 employees for the Israel Innovation Authority, and we also have 180 technology evaluators. These are experts in their fields. Most of them have been, they have a very long and impressive track record in their specific field in the private market. And we hire them as expert evaluators to really make sure we make the best due diligence, that we know what the companies are doing, how innovative their technology is, what is the potential, their business potential, and really a part of the, I think, value we provide to our partners is the fact that we vouch for the companies that we choose to fund because of this rigorous due diligence process that we do with our technology evaluators. As I said, we have a bottom-up approach to support the private sector to take what is coming from the field, and we support all technologies regardless of sector. So again, Sarah mentioned some of the strongest sectors in Israel, but we support all of the sectors across the board. I will say in a second something about our priority. It will be supported regardless of the field. What is the support? So it is said here, conditional loans repayable upon successful commercialization. So we share the risk with the companies. If the company is successful in reaching the market, selling its products, creating revenue, it will need to repay us in royalties. And if it is not successful, then it doesn't have to pay us back because we share the risk of doing R&D and also piloting of innovative technologies. So I mentioned a lot of the work we do inwards toward the Israeli economy, and it is true that most of our activity is directed inwards to Israeli startups. However, as you know, each startup from its day of inception is looking globally, especially in a market like Israel, which is very small. And all of the startups that we support are interested in reaching global markets, in connecting with relevant partners across the world. And we see the value in that. And we also like to, see how these connections help economies grow both in Israel and in partner countries. And for this reason, we have the International Collaboration Division, of which I'm part. So as I said, I'm Europe Desk Director. My colleagues work with other markets across the world. And we have a variety of collaboration tools that we offer to companies. I'd say the bread and butter, or the most basic tool that we have is a joint call for proposals. So this is funding of joint R&D on a bilateral basis. So for example, with Poland, we have a bilateral agreement. And this means that once or twice a year, we open a call for collaborations. And the format there, the way it works is that an Israeli and a Polish company decide to work together on joint R&D. We do our best together with the Sarah Ann and her team and other partners to help with this matchmaking and to really find a partner that would be suitable for you, for your interests and your needs. And then you decide on a project that you want to run together. And each company then applies with this project to its own funding entity. So the Israeli company would apply to the Israel Innovation Authority. The Polish company would apply to NCBR and present this joint project. Maybe I didn't mention this. For us, our funding mechanism is, or our funding kind of approach is that we provide funding on a matching basis. So we always, it's important for us to see that the company is also financially viable on the private market. And for this reason, we never provide full funding for a project. We will always want the company to match it with its own funding coming from, you know, other resources. We on the Israeli side would provide up to 50% funding for the Israeli company, and NCBR will provide funding to the Polish company. The size of the project can vary. So these can be projects as small as, I don't know, €250,000 euros, or as big as 2 million euros, or even bigger. It's flexible. We measure it, as I said, each project is assigned an expert evaluator, and a part of the role of the evaluators is to go over the budget and to see that it makes sense. The project can last more than 1 year also. It can be 2 years long. And then once this budget is approved by the expert evaluator, then we would provide funding for that. So there is flexibility there. And again, as I said, this goes for a variety of sectors, and also some flexibility on the level of technology readiness level of the R&D project. It can be early stage, it can be a little bit more advanced R&D. So there is flexibility there, and the expert evaluator has the discretion to evaluate and to see if the project is good. So this is an opportunity that is open for you. We are soon, you can stay informed, and we will soon update regarding the next call for proposals, which is planned to be open sometime in the next few months. We're working on it now, and we'd be happy to have you join that. Okay, another opportunity that you have for joint activity is through the Eureka network. So you might be familiar with the Eureka network. This is a framework for promoting innovation, mostly European, but not only. There are 45 different countries members of this network, and the network is sort of an umbrella for a few different programs that it runs. One of these is called Eurostars, the others are called the clusters, and Israel and Poland are both part of this network, and there are open calls that are open again a few times a year, and you can follow the publications on that. And this is also an opportunity to collaborate, and the difference here is that you first apply to Eureka, and then you receive funding from, if you're Israeli, you receive it from us. If you're Polish, you receive it from NCBR. But here you can also work with a variety of partners. So if in the bilateral program, it's mostly aimed for 2 partners, one of each country, then in the Eureka programs, it's mostly aimed for bigger, for multilateral projects. So if you're interested to work with, you have one Polish partner, one Israeli, one German, one Italian, whatever, then this would be a good opportunity for you, and also it works for a variety of sectors. Another opportunity that we try to offer is to run pilot projects. So here, it's, I don't know, it depends on who you are. I'm not familiar with everyone here in the audience. So it's less balanced in a sense. So the way we work is that we want to open opportunities for Israeli startups to run their pilot programs abroad. But if you are connected or representing a beta site or some sort of facilities, either hospitals or municipalities or other infrastructure companies, or also private sector companies who are interested to host and to absorb Israeli innovation and to host such pilot programs of Israeli startups, obviously according to your field of interest and according to specific challenges that you pose that these startups can provide a solution for, then this is also something worthwhile exploring, because we the way we work right now is we identify in advance these potential partners in a variety of countries, and Poland is of course one of them, and then we offer that opportunity to Israeli startups. Perhaps in the future, and this is something we're working on, we will be able to even offer more flexibility and then to open it up for multiple beta sites. Right now it's kind of more chosen very specifically, but you should know that this is an option. And the third I mentioned in the beginning, knowledge transfer from academia. So we have a tech transfer program in which we can provide funding for licensing, either exclusive or non-exclusive licensing of patented technology. So if you, again, are representing or affiliated or interested to work with a Polish research institute which wants to transfer its knowledge to the industry, then we can help connect you with relevant Israeli startups who would then pay for this licensing, and this could be attractive for academia wanting to expose its innovative research and to develop it. So this is rather broad. These are our international collaboration tool. There's more information on our website, or you're welcome to reach out again to Sarah Ann or to me with specific questions. We are very happy to to do whatever we can to support successful projects and collaborations between Polish and Israeli industry and academia, all revolving innovation. There is a description of what is a good collaboration project from our point of view. We want to see that the whole is bigger than the sum of its parts. So we want to see synergy and kind of mutual work, and both in technology and business, and to really see why and how this collaboration project is benefiting both sides. If it's risky, then it's great. If it's innovative, if it's futuristic, then it's something we're very much interested in. So this is an opportunity to get support for projects that are kind of forward-thinking. It's not written here, but I will also just mention that, and I said that in the beginning, that we support all sorts of technology, but we do have our focus areas. So the areas that we identified as strategically important for us to invest in are health tech, as you can imagine, very topical these days. Health tech, and specifically a field that the term is not so very well coined yet, but it's called bioconvergence. If you're interested, I can share some information about it online after the webinar. Bioconvergence in a nutshell is the convergence between 3D printing of live tissue and more of those. So the future of medicine. This is a field that we're very much interested in, and we invest a lot of in agrotech, smart industry, smart cities, smart mobility, clean tech, these are all fields that are of a lot of interest. This doesn't exclude all the others, but it does mean that this is something we'd be even more eager to collaborate on. So thank you very much. I hope this has been relevant for you. And again, my contact info is here, and also can be reached through Sarah Ann and her team. And I'm happy to be here and to support your initiatives. So thank you so much for having me. And if you have any questions, Monica, let us know when do you want us to take them.
Yes, thank you very much, Neta. I believe now we can go into questions. If you have any, in the meantime, we have already some on the chat, but please feel free to ask more. So I'll start from the first one we had from Mr. Tomasz Maciesza. What is the market situation when it comes to workforce in the IT sector? Do you experience any so-called technological gaps when the demand for IT specialists exceeds the supply? If so, do you have any estimates how big it can be?
Neta, do you want to take this?
Whichever I can take it. So yeah, we there is this is one of the main challenges of the Israeli ecosystem, and definitely you've touched upon an important topic. By the way, one of the, I didn't mention this before, Innovation Authority is engaged in is diversifying the workforce in the Israeli startup ecosystem, including more communities, as well as working on vocational training and kind of helping more people get into this field, because there is a lack of skilled personnel, specifically with engineers and IT, and this is true. And then some of these tasks onto teams in other countries, possible solution, and in the other is, of course, what we're also trying to do to increase the access to or increase the supply of these skilled personnel, because yeah, definitely it's true. It is a challenge that we are facing. Sarah, and I don't know if you want to add more on what I said.
Yeah, no, from what I remember, there is a challenge in this, just adding and not okay, so from what I remember, there is a challenge in this sector, and we do have more demand than supply in the Israeli market for skilled personnel, as Neta said. The way to try to deal with it is, as mentioned, training programs and so on, but also connections to other countries and trying to cooperate on having personnel basically from other countries to basically come work in Israel. And that is something, if I'm not mistaken, Neta, it is dealt by another department in the Innovation Authority. Because what I remember is,
yes, it is true. As I said, we have,
yeah. So
sorry, I think we are not synchronized. And by the way, now with the Corona crisis, and you know, many people have been have lost their jobs, and now there are not only the Israel Innovation Authority, but other organizations and bodies in Israel are working on that, on providing this sort of vocational training and specialized courses to train skilled workers who are, you know, who cannot work in tourism right now, or in other businesses that were severely damaged, and they can transfer their skills onto high tech. Obviously, this is not specifically for engineering, right? This would be more relevant for business development, sales, customer support, and so forth. But this is also relevant.
Okay, thank you very much. Now we move to the second questions coming from Mr. Andrzej Rzeźnik. Is there some kind of online tool that can help Polish entrepreneurs seek partners for R&D projects in Israel directly? And if yes, which organization should we contact to do that?
Well, basically, if I can take this quickly, Aneta, if you have something to add, this is exactly why we're here. Feel free to approach us. We can help you with the scouting for relevant partners in Israel, and Neta can definitely assist with that as well. So contact either of us or both of us, and we'll be happily to make the matchmaking in Israel and help you find the right partner for you. There are some online tools just to look for Israeli companies, but then eventually you would not know what projects they're looking for and what exactly are their focus areas. So that is our job to know. There are some tools in some tech transfer centers, for example, the Hebrew University website, and then there you can actually see some of the projects that they're looking for partners with. But of course, we have all the contacts needed and with them as well. So we'd be happily either to connect you directly or send you a list of potential partners for that. And Neta, if you want to add something.
Maybe just to add, and we work obviously together with Sarah Ann.
Neta, I think we can't hear you
Just to
properly.
add that if you're
Yeah, I think
we're having some technical problems. Neta, maybe you can turn off your video and then just speak at this moment, because I think
you can, yeah.
The network is not as strong.
Is my internet connection cutting off?
Yeah.
Sorry.
So either try it without video or yeah, basically I think that's it, because rebooting now would not be an option.
I'll just write it down.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
yeah, I think
maybe we can.
Yeah, let's move maybe to next question. So it comes from Mr. Chris Miaskowski. He'd be curious to hear more about the biggest challenges in engineering R&D operations that you think the cooperation between companies in Israel and Poland could be mitigated. For example, what services, resources, know-how would be the most useful to help with Israeli ecosystems growth?
Okay, so if I understood correctly, the first question is about the challenges that the cooperation between Israel and Poland is facing, right?
The challenges in Israel that cooperation between Israeli and Polish companies can help with.
Mitigating?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay, right. Very complex question, and I'll try to answer it very diplomatically. I think the challenge, the first challenge, Neta, you're back? Okay. I think the first
I'm here, but I think my connection is unstable. So I'm listening and I'm hopefully going to be able to respond. If not, then
yeah,
I
so
will take
maybe
it on
in these
later via
cases
email.
it would help to make it better if you turn off your video, so it would consume less, and then just be with us by voice, or try to connect via your phone, for example.
Okay, I'm here without the video right now.
Okay, so would you like to refer to the question, what you had to say before?
I was working on the IT, so I got distracted. So do you want to just point me? Yeah, sorry.
Okay, no problem. So I'll go back to challenges, between Israel and Poland in terms of cooperation, of business cooperation, basically. I think the main challenge would be the differences between the business culture. And I think I didn't mention it in my presentation, but I think what makes Israel unique in terms of innovation and numbers of startups is the fact that Israelis are, I don't know if you've heard of Israeli chutzpah, how Israelis can be, I wouldn't say rude, but straightforward and say exactly what they want to say, and without much formalities. I think that what helps grow the ecosystem and in terms of startups, because then even as a CEO of a company, even if you were a really high ranked commander in the army, for example, you can reach to whoever you want, basically, in Israel. So you don't have to, if you want to reach out to this professor in the Hebrew University, then you can just send an email, and if you're not answered, then you would just try to get the phone number and just call, a cold call, complete cold call, and just, hello, my name is na, I'm interested in, and usually that will get you a meeting or even an email or an answer whatsoever. Even if it's a straightforward answer of, I'm not interested, thank you so much, but I'm not interested. So I think a lot goes maybe lost, basically, in the connection, if not both sides are doing it in a straightforward way. And I know there's a lot of formality, and I understand that here, but I think it is somehow perceived as maybe rudeness from the Israeli side, to be straightforward. And you just have to understand that this is the culture, this is how Israelis function, and it's always like, okay, we have to do this, you have to do this, and not caring about the formality in the process, and more about the results. So basically, I think just mutual trust and openness, and to be honest, not be afraid to say, no, I'm not interested, and that's it. To the partner, or if they're going in a complete different direction, then just go ahead and say it. It will be really respected rather than considered rude from the Israeli side. And basically, yeah, that's the main challenge. I mean, Chris, feel free to tell me if I answered correct, or I.
Hi, Anne. Thank you for the reply. I was curious, and that was very interesting answer, by the way. I was curious about the challenges in terms of like engineering. Like, what would be the most helpful actually from the Polish companies that could help you with the engineering? Like, for example, maybe the engineering challenges that with all the fintech or health tech, med tech, there is a lack of certain services, products, or know-how that you think the cooperation between Poland and Israel can be used most to mitigate those challenges, those actual R&D and engineering challenges. I didn't mean that much about like challenges between corporations. I suppose there isn't much challenges here. We're talking about the ecosystem. So I was curious about the actual challenge that could that Polish companies could help with to help the ecosystem grow.
Okay, so that makes it a lot more clear. Thank you, Chris. Great. So on that note, in terms of R&D, for example, we have a lot of companies, Israeli companies, that are looking for counterparts here in Poland. And that is a challenge by itself, because a lot of the times they are also hoping to apply together with a Polish company to some of the EU funds, the EU R&D funds, or open a subsidiary here together with the Polish partner, and basically start cooperating with Polish experts. And I know there are a lot of sectors that we have a lot of Polish experts that Israelis just look for and cannot find a lot of times. So I think basically I invite you to approach us. If you're interested in looking for partners in Israel, then we would definitely try to find the right match for that and help the Israeli companies find what they're looking for here. Because there's great interest. And last year we dealt with a lot of requests coming from Israeli companies that are really trying and looking for the right partner here, whether it's in R&D, whether it's connecting to experts and bringing them for one project, for example, in Israel, or cooperating here in building a company here and hiring the Polish experts here. And sometimes, you know, we try to contact all or let's say governmental organizations or all the organizations that we're familiar with that can assist with that. But many times it is challenging to get to the right people or connect to the right researchers. For example, if the Israeli company is interested in doing their R&D in here, and I think a lot of the requests were in therapeutical methods, let's call it, in very wide name.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much. That's very helpful. Thanks.
Thank you. Now we're going to move to next question. I will only say that Ms. Neta Gruber will have to leave us shortly because of other arrangements, but we will address every question you ask afterwards, as we are already 3 minutes over our scheduled time. So let me just take one more question, and to other questions we will answer via email afterwards. So we have our last question from Mr. Przemysław Sztandera. Is the Israel Innovation Authority the only startups financing state-owned vehicle, or are there also other vehicles on the local authority level? So I guess, Saran.
So yeah, so as Neta mentioned, I belong to the Ministry of Economy and Industry in Israel, and specifically the Foreign Trade Administration Department, which also offers aid to companies or funding and grants to Israeli companies when interested to enter to foreign markets. So, for example, we have an Israeli company who has a technology in digital health and are interested in entering the Polish market. Of course, together with the trade mission, which would be us and my team, we try to see how we can assist this company to find the right partner here in Poland. And there are quite a lot of programs at the ministry to help this company with either promotional efforts or marketing efforts, or even help them fund participation, for example, in one exhibition that is happening in Poland to showcase their products or the or their technologies, and it differs by the stage of the company. So either if it's a startup, then it's called in Hebrew a window to foreign markets. If it's a more advanced company, then it would be helping in getting the funding, for example, to expos or exhibitions or conferences, and so on. So that is one ministerial help or governmental help also for the companies. There's the Innovation Authority as well. And Netta, am I forgetting some? Is Netta with us or left already?
She left already.
Oh, Monica, maybe you would like to add if you have any other ideas.
Well, definitely there are various options. Also, there's like bilateral cooperation, Polish between Poland and Israel, that can be also used. So I think it can be treated case by case. So please feel free to connect with us, and we will be happy to help. As we already exceeded our time, I would like to thank you very much for joining. All the questions will be asked. We will approach you directly afterwards. You will also receive the presentations that you saw today after our meeting. I'd like to invite you, taking this occasion, to our next meeting that will be focusing on biotech and e-health, and will happen on Zoom as well on February 23rd. Sorry, if you have any questions, please contact us directly. I believe that Mr. Marszałkowski, and as well as colleagues from Pomorskiego will connect you with us, and will be more than happy to help. So thank you very much, Jarosław, and all the ladies from Pomorskie. Thank you so much.
Great. To very briefly sum up, I would like to thank you, Sarah, Ann, Netta, and Monica for hosting this meeting today. This meeting starts a series of events, of webinars between the Polish and Israel companies. We see a lot of people from Pomorskie is interested in going abroad to Israel. So I really hope that we can build a very strong network of cooperation. So also in the following months, we are planning to launch a Interizon marketplace, online tool where we plan to put information about services and products of cluster companies. So to all the participants, I would like to invite you to cooperate with cluster. And once again, thank you for your presentations. It was very interesting, and let's stay tuned for the next webinar in February. Thank you very much.
Definitely, thank you, Jarosław. Just before we finish, if I can have your attention for a minute. You mentioned a lot of interest in visiting Israel or getting to know the ecosystem up close. Then I would really like to share this, I think, good news meanwhile, but we'll wait and see that with the pace of the vaccination in Israel, with right now more than 20% of the population vaccinated, there is a plan to reopen, hopefully by Easter and Pesach. So I think it would be an option to come visit Israel maybe in April or May, and we would be happy to organize such a meeting, meet up close with companies, and visit basically every counterpart that you would think interesting, and basically organize the agenda in as much as interesting as possible, and getting to know the Tel Aviv ecosystem, or basically it's called, in Israel, we laugh that Tel Aviv makes a country by itself, because it's a lot of, it includes a lot of groups and